I was watching the card last night, like so happy knowing that it was the final UFC numbered card that will start at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And hey, like we're from Jersey. For
Yeah,
those of you guys who don't
some
know that,
grace.
it going from 10 to 9 when they go to Paramount makes me like I can't even describe how happy that makes me. Like I'm already stoked that the ESPN era is ending, but the Paramount deal, the best part of it, in my opinion, is that the number cards will start at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Because I'll say this, I'm an F1 fan, and I had to wake up. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to wake up for the final F1 race this morning in Abu Dhabi, which was at 8 a.m. And so, like, I'm trying to stay up till 1 a.m. to watch the fights, barely get sleep to watch another sport that I like because I love mixed martial arts. But I have other interests. We're not that exclusive, I guess. But maybe we'll start an F1 podcast next. But yeah, pretty much like I just felt so just so just dead afterwards, like because I barely got through it. Not because the fights weren't amazing, but just because I was so tired and I like kind of already knew I
I
was
mean,
like,
the pay per view would have ran even longer if the co-main event didn't end in
yeah, I didn't even think about that. Oh
ten
my god.
seconds.
Yeah. So I'm just happy that the 10 p.m. pay per view slash numbered cards are now a thing of the past. But yeah, and I actually have a theory about this, and I'm curious what you think here because they're starting to round out those first few Paramount cards, and what I was noticing is it seems like the prelims are a lot shorter, and I feel like this is an idea that they have to maybe, well, I'm hoping it is at least. I'm hoping that Paramount and the UFC are trying to get rid of the problem where you're having fight cards that are kind of like stretched thin because of too many events. Because when you think about it, like if the UFC and Paramount have less fights on the card, but they still have the same amount of events every year, that kind of fixes the problem that we've been having with like the weaker Apex cards. Because it's like the old cards weren't as long as the cards are now, so it's I don't think fans would be mad if there's maybe 9 or 10 fights versus 13 or 14 because you're still having the same amount of events, and then the events are going to be even better because now you can actually spread out the fighters a little more because you're not putting as many fights on each card. I feel like it'd be smart. I hope that's what they're doing. But
So, so What's that mean for the early prelims? Like, is that just gonna be axed out altogether? You
I feel
think?
like it might be because, well, that's the thing. Like, I don't know if they're just doing it for that first Paramount numbered card because when they put out the card for UFC 324, they have that main card, and then there were like, I think it was maybe no, I think 4 or 5 prelims, and I don't know if they're adding more fights to that, but the way that they posted it, it literally said UFC 324. Here's the card, and it was 9 or 10 fights. And I'm like, if they continue to do that, that could actually solve a lot of problems. And you know what's crazy? All of the times that we talked about those like weak Apex cards, crazy that me or you never thought of that. Like, to just have less fights on the card. Because that's actually a really simple fix. So hopefully that's not just like a one time thing for their first CBS broadcast. I hope that they're going to keep that happening. But we'll see about that in 2026. But for now, we got to talk about the final ESPN pay per view of 2025. And, we've already talked about staying up for UFC 323, but let's talk about the fights that we were staying up for. So, for the main event, everybody probably knows about this already, but just in case some of you guys don't somehow, Piotr Yan pulls off the upset against Merab Dvalishvili, becomes a two-time UFC champion now at bantamweight, wins via unanimous decision, 249-46s and 148-47 scorecard. And I mean, dude, there's so many directions where we could go in this one. But I guess like to kind of start with the fight itself, I think that this was the best performance of Petr Yan's career when you factor in just how good he looked for most of this fight, just breaking down Merab on the feet systematically throughout the fight, hurting him so much to the body. I think he defended, what was it, 24 out of 26 takedown attempts or something crazy like that. And then also just to beat a champion who, by the way, has already beaten you, but like in that big rematch title fight, he's worked so hard to get back there, and to do that to a guy as dominant as Merab. And let's not forget, a couple of months ago, we were already talking about Merab possibly being the best bantamweight champion we've ever seen. And that's still a conversation worth having even after the loss. So Petr Yan getting this win in that spot, to me, is the biggest win of his entire career. But go where you would like to go with it. If you want to start with the fight, legacy, but that's kind of my 2 cents on it all.
Um, well, te- from a technical standpoint, right? It was in the beginning. You you see Marab kind of um, everyone in the building, everyone watching Peter on across from him knows that a single leg takedown attempt is probably coming sooner rather than later. But Marab just kept it standing uh, almost for the entirety of the round. And yeah, like for someone to only land two takedowns over a 5 round fight, and one of those, well, as a matter of fact, I don't think that because Peter Yan was he had his hand on the mat for like a second, so I don't think that actually got scored as a takedown. But
Who
I
knows
think
what constitutes a takedown in MMA at this point? Because remember when we first started the channel, and it was like right after I think Colby fought Usman the second time, and we were debating if Colby was actually the first person to take Kamaru Usman down because
uh,
he had him down. All right, we should probably not get into that because that's a debate that should have happened in 2021. But sorry, I just had to interrupt
yeah,
with that.
well, that's another form of MMA criteria scoring, judging that should be a lot simpler and clearer than it really is. Just like significant strikes, but um, you know, hey, it's the end of the year, and they're gonna enter a whole new era of UFC. So we'll see how much the judging evolves with it. But um, I think even when Marab had Jan's back, for Jan to still keep his base within him, and then get out of it, and then I think just with Marab when it comes to when it comes to his stand up, it's just so like it reminds it's like Popeye the way he's like just so
Yeah,
ready to
you're right.
brawl, bouncing up and down, and the hands are just like and it's like I think he feels a groove from it, but I think when you have and then there's Piotr Jan on the other side, who's so much more calm, cool, and collected, and doesn't even really build the shell either. He has his fingers out, his hand is open already, like finger stretching. He's really like just right on his temple, just like protecting his temple, just super, just composed and just ready to bust Marab's face open the exact way he did in this fight. And I think Marab was just. I mean, it didn't help that Marab would actually audibly like scream when he got hit with a really hard strike, and um, Daniel Cormier was saying like you gotta try to hide it somehow because now Piotr Jan knows where to keep the offense on.
And DC knows that better than anybody because you think about that second Stipe fight, getting hit with that same body shot over and over. I mean,
But when when the UFC bantamweight champion of the world is in pain like that in the moment, just it goes to show you uh, just how real this sport really is, and just how much damage these guys take over the course of not only a single fight but their entire career. And I mean, uh, I don't know. You have to wonder how you have to wonder how Marab woke up this morning, how his liver must be feeling, his jaw, his head, all of it, because Piotr Jan was leaving. No, no, but Piotr Jan was not going to leave any room for the judges to keep him from holding that belt.
Well, he beat the champ. That's like the phrase that you always hear. You got to beat the champion to be the champion, and he did that. That's for sure. I always like when I look at Piotr Jan, he almost reminds me of like a miniature version of Ivan Drago from Rocky. Just the way that he like surgically beats the crap out of people and just hurts them. Like it just looks like it hurts to fight Piotr Jan. You're getting hit with elbows, liver kicks. I mean, the sound that one kick made in the third round. I'm so glad that they like. I've been seeing so many clips of that on social media because that was brutal. But like it's just insane because he's so well rounded, and we've known that for such a long time. But it's so weird because going into this fight, everybody respects Piotr Jan, but nobody saw this coming because of how dominant Marab has looked. And it does need to be said, like just how perseverant Piotr Jan is coming in after he loses the title in 2021 to Aljamain Sterling in the most bizarre way possible, throws that knee when Aljo is on the ground and loses the title, then loses the rematch, and then goes on a losing streak. But then after that losing streak, gets back, has that 3-fight win streak, and then gets to fight Marab again, and he gets it done, and now he's the champion. It's been quite a roller coaster for Piotr Jan in his career because like I really we've seen so much of it, and it feels like it's happened so fast in a way. But it really hasn't been. Like now he's been in the game for such a long time, but I still remember like how quickly he rose through the ranks. Like, cause this guy Piotr Jan, he beats John Dodson, who hits like a train. Then I remember he head kicked Uriah Faber, and then right after that is when he fought Jose Aldo for the title. And I don't know if you remember that fight. It was a good one, but by the end of it, Aldo was in a pool of his own blood. And Jan was the champion. It felt like we were going to see a long reign, but then the Aljo thing happens, and it kind of derailed his career for a few years after that. But to see him get back on the horse, get on that win streak, and then avenge the loss to Marab in this way, just outstanding. Like, I mean, you got to give him credit for it. It's unbelievable. It really is. But then you kind of look at it like from the other perspective, and you look at Marab. You kind of talked about, well, how's he feeling this morning, physically, but even mentally, like, do you think he's wondering, man, maybe I shouldn't have taken a fourth fight in 2025 because it's a big weight cut for him. He's not a small guy. I mean, he's small, obviously, in the grand scheme of, like, the weight classes, but for a bantamweight, like, he has to cut a decent bit to get to 135. So.
Yeah, well, just like shout out to all the history here Marab's already made, and even more history that he already in terms of title defenses within 1 year. He already's got that, but he couldn't actually defend the title this time around. So it's like a give and a take, but that's the one guy right now that no matter how tall the goal might be, Marab's willing to climb to it. So, it's just that was especially that third round is like someone's got to drop, right?
Yeah.
And then, because at that point, it's like clearly in Piotr Jan's favor, but you still just it's so Marab's made it so hard to like really count him out and be like, oh well, all Piotr Jan has to do is just not get finished. It's like, okay, well, we'll see how, that's still a challenge within itself, but yeah, Piotr Jan, there you go. That was, you can't like nobody saw that way to beat Marab coming.
I'm glad you actually said that too, because like I'm thinking about this when you've looked at the past few fights for Marab. it seems like a lot of these guys think the way to beat him was to try and inflict as much damage as possible on the feet before he gets his hands on you. But Petr Yan, it seemed like instead of just trying to do as much damage as he could, he really embraced the fact that he's like, I'm going to have to deal with Merab trying to take me down. I can't let him take me down no matter what. And Jan, instead of doing what all these other guys have tried to do, because think about like Corey Sandhagen, for example. He looked good on the feet, but after a certain point, he just couldn't stop the takedowns. Petr Yan, he's like, I'm just going to really focus on defending these takedowns, and if I can do that, the damage is going to come with it. And that's exactly what happened in this fight. So like, he does deserve that. Even on a fight IQ, like just the thought of his fight IQ just really impresses me. Because, and I feel like we've really seen Jan mature over the course of his career, because now this is going to be his second title reign. And you think of the way the first one ended, it's like this guy's come a long way. So, and which is weird to say about a guy after he's like already been champion. Yeah. Like I feel like when we have that conversation, it's about guys like maybe Peyton Talbott, who we're going to talk about, coming a long way, or Sean O'Malley. But Petr Yan, you know, he won the title and then lost it and somehow got even better. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. And no matter what people think about Merab and like the choice that he made to try and defend this title another time in 2025, I mean, that's one of those types of decisions. Like Merab trying to get 4 title defenses in 1 year, if this would have worked out, people would be praising Merab, like bowing down to the throne. But now that it didn't work out, people are like, oh, that was a huge mistake. He shouldn't have done that. But it's easy to be Monday morning quarterback, in my opinion. So I kind of give him credit for even going for that, even though it didn't work out for him in the end. And it might have been the reason why he didn't look as good in this fight. But I personally think Petr Yan is also phenomenal. And you could argue that this would have probably happened anyway, just by the way that the game plan looked. But that's just my opinion on that one. I still give Merab credit, though, for even giving that a shot.
Well, the main thing was, and why the initial consensus way that everyone figured you could beat Merab was to hit him as much as possible before he makes it up close and personal and gets you to the ground. But I don't think anyone took into account that, well, you also need to have the stamina to go all 5 rounds as well, like Petr Yan just did. And screw it, man. I mean, it's Merab 26 total takedown attempts. Like, hey, man, like, it's just Petr Yan, like, just showed that there are levels to the game, but he's up for the challenge.
I thought it was funny too when I saw the post-fight stuff, and it was Merab talking about how he wanted to make the fight more exciting by standing, and then it was like one of those carousel posts where it said that quote, and then you swipe over and it was 24 out of 26 takedown stuff. Like there's not even any fighters who shoot for 26 takedowns in fights at this point, and Merab.
I mean, you could see it progress through the fight. Merab.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Merab was gonna. You that's a guy you have to kill, obviously, to put away, and not have to make sure that you have all the energy that you can handle to go with him. But I mean, you could just see it, like, and it, obviously in his face and how bloodied up it was, and you just see it like kind of in his expression, like he knew, like, hey, I'm in some deep shit now. Like, I haven't really been in this spot in a long time.
Not since he dove headfirst into the ice in New York. I love Merab, man. I really do.
So, everybody faces adversity in fighting, and no matter, even if you're the champ of the world, you've defended the title already 3 times before this.
Well, speaking of getting through adversity, I mean, look at the new champion now. I mean, that's a perfect example of somebody who, had some rough patches and then managed to come back from it to get the ultimate prize. But now that Jan has the belt, we have to figure out what could possibly be next for him. And he has quite a few options, actually. So I think the one that everybody was thinking of is possibly a trilogy with Merab, because it's 1-1 now. They both look dominant in their wins against each other, so maybe a third one.
I'm already down for that.
I would definitely like to see
Let's
it.
do it, yeah.
I think it really depends on like how soon Merab can maybe get back, because he took a lot of damage in that
Because
fight. Been active.
if Rob doesn't win a rematch, then I don't. It's not one of those. The guy's already earned the right to do whatever he wants, really.
Yeah.
And the UFC will make it happen.
I mean, I think it's the fight to make. I just don't know if the timeline for it works out because, like I said, he was so active in 2025, took a ton of damage in this fight. So I have this feeling that maybe we might get one in between there. But who knows? I mean, Merab's just a savage. But even besides that, there's other options out there. Umar is fighting Figgy in the beginning of the year, so possibly Umar, if he gets another win, he could fight for the title. One thing that I think is possible, and I think that we're starting to get some momentum towards it, Sean O'Malley is fighting Song Yadong, and I've talked about this on the podcast in the past. I don't think that that's a good matchup for Song. I just think he's too hittable, and a sniper like Sean O'Malley is going to find his chin. So, assuming that Sean O'Malley can get through Song Yadong, Yan versus O'Malley 2 is another huge fight for the UFC to make, whether people like Sean O'Malley or they don't. And the White House card does need a main event, so maybe at some point we could see that. I just think that Yan has a lot of options right now, whether it's Merab, Umar, or O'Malley. I don't think anyone could complain.
You know who I'm excited to, keep? I mean, granted, after his last fight, which was a win, but it wasn't all that encouraging to make you think like, oh yeah, he has to be next in line for a title shot. But Davison Figueiredo is just gonna keep climbing. I feel like, and sooner rather than later, he's got to get his opportunity at the title. So who knows who's gonna be the champion when he does? But
Figgy, it's so weird because at bantamweight he does look really good, but he just keeps losing that like title eliminator fight. But he keeps getting those fights, so it's like all he needs is one win, and he's right back in there. So, and if he beats Umar, that's a huge win for him. But that's a tough one. Umar's obviously pretty insane, but we'll see what happens with Petr Yan. I say we move on to this flyweight title fight. What's up, guys? Sorry to interrupt the podcast real quick, but we have a message for you guys.
If you enjoy her Hamburg's content, you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like on the videos. All sorts of fight content as much as possible, podcasts, interviews, vlogs. We have it all over here, so thank you, appreciate it.
We appreciate you, and like he said, please subscribe. And now, back to the show, which sadly won't be too long of a conversation. But for those who didn't see it, Joshua Van becomes the UFC flyweight champion in probably the most unfortunate way possible. Alexandre Pantoja injured his arm about 26 seconds into the fight in a wrestling scramble. That was just brutal. I really didn't have to keep showing that replay.
It wasn't brutal enough, clearly, because we had to show like 8 replays.
Yeah, and like zoomed in slow motion replays of this guy's arm just snapping. I'm like, all right, I get it. I get it.
It was almost like, wait, let's see, is it really his elbow or is it his shoulder? Because apparently today, they're like, it's his shoulder.
That's what Dana said. I looked pretty rough all around, no matter what it was.
Fact of the matter is, it was bad enough to. I mean, we could see it anyways when he's holding his freaking elbow, like it's like popped out of place, and it's bad enough to stop a title fight. It's like, hey, we get it, like the guy doesn't need to. Who the hell? Oh my god!
Oh wait, I was literally about to bring this up, dude. Dominic Cruz saying, "Why did they stop the fight?" As if, by the way, Pantoja didn't wave it off himself, but he's like, the ref should have let him keep going. Like, what? So Pantoja could fight Joshua Van like this? No shoulder, just like arm all over the place. I was like, what is he talking? Dude, I love Dominic Cruz, but I don't know what he was talking about on that one. That was an interesting take. I will give him that. But, yeah, I mean, I think it needs to be said. Early stoppage. No, I think that was probably the right call. Sad to say to Dominic Cruz. Now my shoulder hurts. But I mean, in all seriousness, it stinks for everybody. I mean, obviously Joshua Van is a UFC champion now.
Yeah, I don't think it stinks for Joshua Van. I mean, even he thinks so. How's it? Obviously.
Well, for him, it's like, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's not his fault.
Like, you think these fighters are going through their training camp thinking, all right, how am I gonna get him to pop his freaking elbow completely out of place? No, he's a professional. He's challenging for the title for a reason. He's prepped to go all 5 rounds if need be, and he's gonna figure out what he needs to do to finish Alexander Pantoja. But at the same time, there is something to take away from Pantoja, and it's just, as much as it's worked for him, and who's to say it still would have worked if this fight was had a proper finish, but he comes right at you. Like, he doesn't waste a single second just getting all up in your face, like the cannibal, So he's trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible for you when he's standing across from you on the feet, and obviously not to say that's why the injury happened, but you see the risk that comes with, whether or not he gets caught with something or a freak accident happens, because obviously he's so talented enough that it works for him, and he is able to land with accuracy and power. But man, so there's certain dudes that you're just gonna have to feel out and just let the fight kind of play out a little bit, not give up the round obviously, but
unless you're Piotr Jan, the famous collecting data in the first 5 minutes just to destroy the guy for the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
But I mean, to your point,
it's like Terrence McKinney fought earlier in the night, and Terrence McKinney is the same way. And Terrence McKinney's always really exciting, and so is Alexander Pantoja. But obviously Pantoja's up here, and then McKinney's beneath him. But even for Pantoja, a guy with Joshua Van as well on the other side, who I think more or less would be okay fighting off the back foot and counterpunching a little and finding his openings that way, which is part of why this made a good matchup between them. But
ultimately, though, we've kind of just learned nothing.
I wish we got to at least.
It was a fun 26 seconds.
I wish we got to at least get to the second round or the third round, but
it just sucks, man. I feel horrible for Pantoja. That's such a bad way for such a good title reign to end, and it ended so fast too. Like you said, we didn't even get to the second round, let alone the second round. We didn't even get 30 seconds into the fight. It really ended right as it was beginning, and we looked like we were on pace for a good one. But these things happen in mixed martial arts. Freak injuries are a part of it, unfortunately. Joshua Van is the champion one way or another. And it looks like Pantoja's probably not going to be the next guy to defend it, that he's going to defend it against. That was a pretty brutal injury. It looks like Pantoja's probably going to be out for a little while. So I would imagine that Joshua Van actually will have a title defense in the meantime before Pantoja gets another shot, which he will get. But
it's a big deal. The whole tide of UFC changed overnight.
Yeah.
Between Merab's stronghold on the bantamweight division and Pantoja's reign over the flyweight division, it's more or less wide open now, because
those two shocking results in completely different ways.
So big opportunities are gonna come out of it for these guys that are close to a title shot.
Well, speaking of that could bring us right into the next fight. Tatsuro Taira versus Brandon Moreno. I mean, Tatsuro Taira with a huge win.
Yeah, he's over there right here.
I mean, he TKOs Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno's never been TKO'd in his career, and obviously he's been around for a very long time now. We were talking a little bit about this before we started, but didn't love the stoppage, but also not the worst one I've ever seen. I mean, Moreno was covering up, getting hit with shots. I mean, yes, he wasn't out, but I don't really know if he was getting out of that. And at a certain point, I think the ref just has to step in, but I think it was a bit premature. knowing that Brandon Moreno is tough as nails and has gotten out of crazy things like that before. But, I don't think that he was robbed of a victory or anything. Tatsuro Taira was looking good in that fight too, and
Yeah,
ultimately
and
gets the finish. So
for what it's worth, obviously it goes in the books as a TKO finish, but he didn't. It's not like he took damage like that, Brandon Moreno. Like, I think he'll be back again pretty soon, and he'll get another worthy opponent. And should he beat him, he'll be right back in the thick of the title conversation. Now with a new champion, and if it's still Joshua Van and he gets a shot at Joshua Van, well, there you go. That's a new name for him to try and beat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Moreno's happy. I don't think he's
Exactly,
happy,
yeah,
but
because he won't have to
have to deal with Pantoja.
Yeah, so,
yeah, I don't think he's happy about the injury, but I'm sure he's happy about the result.
yeah, so, I mean, shout out to Tatsuro Taira.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge win.
I think that guy's been fairly exciting for quite some, like, we talk about the Kai Kara Francis of the world and whatnot when it comes to the flyweight division, and just how exciting it really is top to bottom. But here's someone who's like quietly been making his way up the rankings for.
Well, it's not so quiet anymore.
Yeah.
Now we're right up there, and I think that it's fair to say that he's probably going to get the next title shot. I can't really see anyone skipping him in the queue. I mean, obviously next week we have a flyweight main event.
I mean, shout out to Josh Van, because you know what Josh Van didn't just Josh Van, it wasn't, the title shot just wasn't handed to him. Like, that Brandon Royval fight is one of the better fights that you'll see, not only at 125 pounds, but in the UFC in general. And just two guys who are so game for who's going to get a title shot. He earned the opportunity. So that's just how it shook out. That's the reality we're in, and yeah, I mean,
it's nobody's fault. It just happens.
Yeah, I think he's still worthy enough to defend the belt, and
yeah, I think he deserves it. The people, and dude, MMA has a lot of miserable fans out there. Sadly, like the people who are mad that Joshua Van is champion, like mad at him for it. It's like, I mean, come on. Like, it's MMA. People are going to get hurt. Like, these fluke types of things happen.
Once the belt was put around him, he's just going to take it off.
Like Justin Gaethje did. I'll wait for the real one. But for real, though, like, I don't know. I think, like you said, it's not like Joshua Van didn't deserve to be in that position. And you can't fault the guy for an injury. I mean, it is what it is. So I think Van versus Taira was the fight to make.
I mean, like, flyweight it's still extremely exciting. Just the most underrated division in UFC. And there's another big flyweight fight next week.
We'll see if either of those guys can do anything to change what just happened, really, because it looks like Taira is the clear shoo-in for a title shot. But if Manel Kape or even Royval can do something crazy next week, could be possible that they can jump the queue. But I don't really see it. I feel like Taira's got it. But you were talking about the flyweight division. Next fight, one half of it was the one-time savior of the flyweight division, even if it's self-proclaimed. But Henry Cejudo.
Yeah.
It was Henry Cejudo's final fight, his retirement fight versus Peyton Talbott. Sadly for Triple C, Talbott spoiled that retirement fight, defeats the former double champ, I should say, via unanimous decision, 30-27 scorecards. So Talbott really dominated the fight, and
that was a fucking clinic.
It was really impressive. And to think that at one point Talbott's grappling was really suspect, and for him to do that well, especially in the wrestling, against a gold medalist wrestler like Henry Cejudo, it has to be said how impressive it is.
We know the absolute skill that Talbot possesses and the trajectory he's on, and we're interested to see where he's gonna be in the rankings when they come out. But the guy's on a super just a really good trajectory. And like obviously Henry Cejudo himself thinks highly enough of him for him to be his last opponent. Henry at 135 as well. When we know Henry Cejudo was a better flyweight than a bantamweight. So that right there it says a lot about Payne Talbot and testament to him. So it was just another opportunity, another spot for him to just put on the absolute well-rounded showcase that he did. Even when it came to inside trips, like straight up wrestling Henry Cejudo. I mean, obviously by that, once the wrestling really came into play, like Henry was already pretty like messed up from the striking, like pretty damaged from the striking. But obviously that's Cejudo's wheelhouse anyways, and there were moments there where he was starting to take control of the ground game, but right back on the feet. Like, I mean, Henry was getting hit with absolute haymakers, and he didn't really flinch. Like he kept his footing the whole time. I mean, his right eye was absolutely swollen to hell and back, but he stood right in the face of Payne Talbot, and
it's tough to go out in a good way in MMA.
Cejudo
he did as well as he could.
He lasted all three rounds, and just that's one way to gain a lot of fans back that Henry Cejudo's lost over the years. So.
Well, there's one thing that we always say on this channel. We love to quote the great Chael Sonnen, the undefeated, undisputed Chael Sonnen. And he always says, there's one way that MMA careers usually end, and it's face down, ass up, and embarrassed. And Henry Cejudo, thankfully, even though he lost, did not end up any of those things. So it's he didn't get the win, but he went out on his shield. He looked good. He hung tough. Like, what are you gonna do? Payne Talbot, he's the future. I mean, I think that's clear.
Yeah, I mean, he got the point down too. They met in the center at the end.
He went for it. By the way, I've got to say, I love the confidence that Payne Talbot showed in this fight. He really had so much fun in there. I mean, messing around with Cejudo on the feet. After he took him down, looking up at the camera and smiling and his tongue out and stuff. Like, he had a good time in there. And I think it's fun when you're watching someone who's having fun in the cage. That's for sure. Like, I'll never forget, for example, like how I felt watching Max Holloway fight Calvin Kattar and just putting a beat down on him and talking to the commentators and just all that. Like, it's fun. It's fun for the fans. And now Payne Talbot will probably be in the top 10 to 12 range. I mean, Cejudo is ranked number 10 by the UFC, so we'll see if he just takes that spot. I mean, I think that would make sense. So, but Talbot looked really good, and for Cejudo, does need to be said, what a career this guy's had. A lot of people can't stand Henry Cejudo. Sometimes I can't stand Henry Cejudo personally, but you can't hate on the guy's accomplishments. I think you have to give him the credit of being the greatest combat sports athlete we've ever seen. Double champ in the UFC, Olympic gold medalist. This guy beat Mighty Mouse in the midst of Mighty Mouse's prime.
Yeah.
Beat T.J. Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, Marlon Moraes. Like, this guy has some nice wins,
When you think about all the injuries and stuff that has to come with that, is to still be victorious throughout all of it. It's definitely inspiring for sure. Obviously Henry Cejudo's character leaves a lot to be desired, but hey, when it comes to the fighting game,
he's the real deal.
There's not much you can really say to him.
I still wish he wouldn't have retired after the Cruz fight. I maintain that is one of the worst decisions ever.
And it's like he did, and so you might as well stay retired, and then he
came back, went 0-4 after the comeback. Like, it sucks that that's the image that he kind of leaves at the end there, but I choose to look at how great he was in the midst of his own prime rather than the end of it.
Last night was a good way to
it's as good as it can be. Yeah. So, last fight we were going to talk about on the main card is another interesting one. Jan Blachowicz fights Bogdan Guskov to a draw, majority draw, and I mean, this is one of those fights. it obviously was super close, but round two was really what changed everything. Two of the judges had it 10-8 for Guskov, which makes sense because he almost finished Jan at one point in that round.
Yeah.
So it's just it was a close fight,
It was
technically.
close, but just
Close in the scoring. That's what I mean.
I think the moment kind of in my opinion, overwhelmed Guskov. I think this was a spot on the pay-per-view that, and he's going against a former champion, and it makes sense. You're going against someone who's closer to a legend than not, in Jan Blachowicz, and who still holds the number 5 spot in the division, and that's it. That is a lot of pressure for a guy like Guskov, because that is quite a bump up, and he's earned it over this stretch he's been on. I just thought there were so many opportunities for Guskov to, not only finish, not only like handedly win the fight unanimously, but even finish Jan Blachowicz. I mean, I think it was, I think the first round was more or less a toss up, and then the second round clearly was Guskov, and the third round is why the split decision happened, because I think he was just kind of like gun shy. I think it was more just like a respect for the strength of Jan Blachowicz and his power with his hands and ability to get someone on the ground as well.
That's how
so
I
it
feel
kind of
about
left Guskov at like a crossroads, not really sure where he's gonna attack from and how he's gonna do it. And then that's and then like I said before about Jan Blachowicz's ground game, which is underrated, and I don't think he wanted to deal with that either. So it was just it was one of those fights where you definitely see that a split decision or a majority draw is in the cards.
And hey, it needs to be said too, the one judge that did have a winner had Jan Blachowicz as the winner, 29-28.
Yeah,
so
I'm not saying. I just think, and especially with Jan, coming back from that surgery in his shoulder, he was pretty timid to throw that right hand, and I just thought that was one of those things that Guskov could have. I think it's one of those fights that Guskov and his team are definitely gonna watch back, and there's just gonna be a lot that they're gonna take away from it, and going forward, they're not gonna let those kinds of things happen anymore. Like, he's going to press forward a lot more. He's gonna get he's gonna close the distance a lot more, and that's just what I think. Because should he?
He's lucky he didn't lose anything here. I mean, I think it's pretty much, since they had a draw, nobody.
Because should he get to that top 5 of this division, like, you're gonna have to strike. You're gonna have to make it dirty. You're gonna have to be able to strike from range, which I think he's fine with. But
ultimately, too, you got to put a stamp on it. Like, you have to have. I mean, there's so many good contenders at light heavyweight. You have to finish these fights.
I get it. Like, because it's not just some schmo who's standing across from him. Like, this is a guy with plenty of stain in the UFC octagon. So, it was a big moment for Guskov, and perhaps he did get a bit overwhelmed, but to still, hey man, like, you didn't lose. So
I was honestly impressed by both of them for different reasons. Like, Guskov to have such a big step up in competition, and I mean, almost finished Jan in the second round, so that's pretty impressive no matter what the result is. And then on the other side of it, for Jan Blachowicz, I mean, this dude's 42 years old, and he's still hanging in there with the rising stars in the division. I mean, like I said, the one judge that had a winner had Jan winning the fight, so it's a majority draw in the end, but it seems like both guys had some good moments to look at. So I was impressed by both of them, but it sucks that no one's really gaining anything out of it. And I did want to say this before we go here, because I was just looking at Jan Blachowicz's Tapology, and I thought this was fascinating. When Jan lost the title to Glover Teixeira, the fights after that, so he beats Alexander Rakic after that, but that was when Rakic blew out his knee in the fight, so it was a random fluke injury. kind of similar to the co-main event of this card. So then after that, he has the draw with Magomed Ankalaev. So another draw we're talking about. Then he had that fight with Alex Pereira, and I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was an extremely close fight when Alex went up to 205. And I remember at that point we were debating if Pereira was even going to be doing that well at 205 because that was such a tough fight for him. But he lost that fight. It was razor thin split decision. Then he has an even closer split decision loss to Carlos Ulberg earlier this year, and now he has another draw with Guskov. So
that leaves his record at what now?
If we're going from after the Teixeira fight, he would be 1-2-2. But those two losses again, like you could really argue that.
So in total, his career record is what now?
Oh, it's like his career record.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Because I know this is his second draw, which
he's been fighting for a minute.
And that too,
29, 11, and 2.
Wow.
He's had quite a run, man.
That's pretty amazing, you know. Like I said, guy's way closer to a legend than not, so.
Definitely. Hey, and UFC champion, you can never take that away from him at the end of the day. But
yeah,
that was it was a fun card. Even the prelims were fun. There were a lot of like crazy highlight reel finishes on that. Nothing really that like has title implications or like I guess what's the word, like fights to do with top contenders. So like we won't really be getting too much into that, but ultimately this final ESPN pay-per-view was pretty awesome. And then next week is the final UFC event of the ESPN era, and what better place to have it than at the UFC Apex? You know, how many times have we been there in the ESPN era? I think this is going to be 112, not counting the pay-per-views that we had there. So, yeah, it's fitting that we're ending the ESPN era at the Apex, which has been home for much of it. But yeah, I'm just messing around. It's a good main event. You know, we kind of alluded to it when we were talking about the flyweights on this card, but Brandon Royval is fighting Manel Kape in a nice 5-rounder to end the ESPN era, and I'm really excited to see that, and I'm intrigued to see if either of those guys can skip Tatsuro Taira in the line to a title shot against Joshua Van. So we will be back next week to talk about that. We'll be talking about our thoughts on the ESPN era now that it is coming to a close. And after that, we'll see what happens over the long break until the beginning of the Paramount era. So hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please subscribe. And until next week, we'll see y'all.
Feels just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see tomorrow. Living fast, brand new dash up in a foreign car. It's the type of shit that you be doing when you going hard.